Shortly after Roberta and I arrived at this church, we sat down over dinner. We do most of our talking over dinner, and she asked me if I would put some thoughts together on what I thought the church shouldn't be and should be, based on my international experiences. And so I've done that. I did it a long time ago, actually, and she was waiting for the moment to invite me to preach, and here it is. So, folks, buckle up. The sermon comes in two parts, mostly because, in the first part, as an introduction, I'm asking you to put on your thinking caps. But in the second part, I'm asking you to put on your imagination caps. And so it's a bit of a difference, a tone in the sermon. And so I've asked Eric and Glenda in the choir if they could pause for us in the sermon, and that's what we're going to do. But for part one. As many as you know, I worked as the Secretary for World Church Relations for United Reformed Church in Britain, and because of that job, I traveled quite a bit. Most of my flights were long-haul flights overnight, and somewhere about halfway from London to wherever I was going, I would always say to myself, when I land, I am coming home. I am arriving home. I'm going to an international church partner, and I'm arriving home. It's a bit of a game, because I might not even have met these people yet. And they might not have met me, but when I arrived, they made sure I felt welcome and I was home. That's what the church is about. Now, two obvious things jumped out about me, about that experience when I was traveling so much. The first thing, which is obvious, is that we're all different. We speak different languages, we have different colored skin, we eat different foods, we have different clothing. We have different houses and different quality of houses. We live under different political systems, and we dance to different cultural norms. We have a different idea of what it is to be ethical and moral. We have a different idea of what it is to worship. We have a different idea about what it is to be human, and we have a different idea, what God is in our huge Christian family. Many Christians in Polynesia think Jesus is a nice guy, but they don't waste a lot of time talking about Jesus because you can talk about the Holy Spirit. Now that is worth our time. One day after church in India, in a small town in India, I found myself sitting eating food with my hands off a banana leaf. 3 days later, I was in Taiwan eating chicken feet and duck tongue with chopsticks. When I arrived in Mobutu, Mozambique one time to visit, I was told I was preaching the next day to a group of 5,000 people sitting under two huge, beautiful trees. And as I preached, my words were translated into Portuguese and Swahili. Either you like it, or you don't. The other thing that was obvious, though, is that we're all the same in this family. We all want the same thing. We want our kids to have an education at a good school. We want a home that is secure and pleasant. We want a job so that we can feed our families. We want injustice to end. We want clean water so we can drink and cook and bathe. We want war to end. Everywhere I went, people told me they wanted war to end. We want the world to change. And I'm assuming that in part, at least in part, why you're sitting here today, is you're not happy with the way things are either. At least not every day. You too want the world to change. For whatever reason, we tend to concentrate on the differences that divide us instead of the things that we share. And that's the reading from Galatians. Paul used the phrase, in Christ. There are neither Jew nor Greek in Christ. There are not slave or free in Christ. There are not male or female in Christ. And what he was talking about was you. What he's talking about is a community of faith. The in Christ language is about a community of faith based on the Christness that we absorb, that we embrace, that we share. And what he did is he identified three of the major dividing walls that we erect. Race, with neither Jew nor Greek. Economics, not slave or free. Gender, not male or female. And I have to believe, and this is just an opinion, but I have to believe if Paul were writing today, because when he wrote that a long time ago, that was quite a radical statement. I have to believe that today he would say, and there's neither gay nor straight. We build these walls. And what he was saying to his community, and we are saying to ourselves is, okay, human beings like to build these walls on race, economics, and gender, but we will not in this community. And if we were to do that, then we are not in Christ. And not only that, because the church exists in a larger community. We don't exist in a bubble. We exist in a larger community. We also declare to the world that we believe that we should not be divided on these issues. We will not be divided on these issues. And we will put our lives on the line to say to you that we will not be divided on these issues. Now, I'm not naive. We are divided on these issues. And they can be quite effective. Most African cities were built by Europeans. And if you were just to see it from a distance and not know what you were looking at, you would just see a city. But surrounding many of these cities are what are called in many places townships. And you can tell when the townships begin because that's where the paved road ends. And that's where the structures, the houses, or the kiosks, or the small businesses that people might have are made of whatever they can make them out of. Concrete, steel, cardboard. And one of my many trips to Harare in Zimbabwe, my friend and I were driving into the township. I can't remember why we were doing that, but he realized within moments that he had gone in the wrong way, and he had to turn his four-wheel drive vehicle around on this very narrow road, which took him time. Was it a three-point turn? Is that what it is? Three-point turn. And while he was doing that, I looked out my window, and there, not as far away as where Eric is sitting, was a 10-year-old, I'm guessing around a 10-year-old girl, standing behind a fence. And it was one of those moments, I'm sure many of you had it, where you lock eyes with a stranger, and you don't look away for some reason, and time stops just for that moment, and something happens. And there she was. She was black, I was white. She was poor. And by her standards, I am wealthy. She was female and I was male. And the chasm between us was huge. But we do not accept it. Now, before I turn it over to Eric and the choir and Glenda, just one more thought. In the John reading, which I know you've heard before, I'm sure you heard the Galatian before too. Forgive me for that. But in the reading that Stan shared with us, it said, Jesus is saying, abide with me, or abide in me, the word abide. But if you turn to the Greek, and many scholars prefer the phrase, make your home in me, as I make my home in you. And the word home transforms the tone of what he's saying. This isn't about place and abiding. This is about home. This is your home. And so the sense of what our relationships are transformed. The sense of what this space is transformed. And it's one of the reasons, after 6 hours on a flight, I would say to myself, I'm going home, no matter where I am.
Bless now, O God, the journey that all your people make, the path through noise and silence, the way of give and take. The trail is found in the desert and winds the mountains round, then leads beside still waters, the road where faith is found. Bless sojourners and pilgrims who share this winding way. Your hope burns through the terrors. Your love sustains the day. We yearn for holy freedom, while often we are bound. Together we are seeking the road where faith is found.
Thank you, Eric. And thanks. It was short notice, so thanks, guys. I appreciate it. I said to you what I think we shouldn't do in this home, what we call a church. We shouldn't be building walls. But you would rightfully want to ask me, okay, Dale, what should we do? You hope we would do. And so this is what I think we should do. Many years ago on my trip to El Salvador, it was a trip to Nicaragua and El Salvador for the church. And there were many reasons to go there. It was the time of the wars, the Contra wars in Nicaragua and the disappearances in El Salvador, soldiers on the street. It wasn't a very pleasant place to be. But one of the reasons we went there was to meet with what we called a Christian-based community, which is a church that works in its community. And it was interesting. It was in Spanish, I couldn't understand where it was going on. But the church was just a long building, narrow building, because it had been bombed 5 times already, and so it was just made of cinder block and corrugated steel for the roof. And both ends were open, and the dogs would walk in, and people were doing barbecues outside. And on the wall behind the altar were the pictures of the people who had been martyred in the community, and most of them that were young, who had been killed by the army. And after worship, I met with the leaders of this Christian-based community, this church, and at least 3 of them in that group had children on that wall. Now, we all read liberation theology in those days. It was a really good thing. I mean, it changed the way I thought about theology and thought about the church. But in El Salvador, of course, where it was growing out of the soil, it really was grounded in the earth. And it wasn't about idea, it was about living. And the church, this community, liberated its people. It liberated its people out of poverty by building a soap factory so that they could work. It liberated men out of beating their wives, and it liberated wives out of being beaten by their husbands. It liberated people out of alcoholic and drug addiction. It liberated people out of fear. It liberated them into dignity. It liberated them into hope and living a world that they could control to some extent. And as I was going home, I asked myself, well, how does my church liberate people? Now, we're not going to transplant their theology to ours, but how does my church liberate people? The church is a place of liberation. On my first trip to Cuba, Havana, I stayed in a hotel in the main square of Havana. I didn't stay outside in the National Hotel because it was easier for me, and I was meeting people there for the first time. We were exploring. We had not met. The United Reformed Church didn't have a relationship with the Presbyterian Church in Cuba, but we wanted one. And so I sat down with Dora and Carlos. Carlos was the leader of the church, and Dora was his assistant. And they didn't know me, and we were feeling each other out. What was this about? And so he started telling the story of the church in Cuba. Now, it's important to know, to remember, or to know if you don't know, that in many countries, and certainly countries in Central and South America, there were 3 pillars that held society up, and more than not held the elite up. One was the government, of course, who made the laws that protected the wealthy and kept the poor in their place. The second pillar was the military. The military, we think of that organization that saves us from outside invasion, but in many countries, the military is there to keep the people in charge or in place through intimidation and sometimes violence. And the third pillar is the church. Because the church is part of the elite. And the church keeps people in place by telling them that God wants them to be where they are, or God wouldn't have put them there, and if they rebel from that, they're going to end up going to hell. But if they're good, they get to go to heaven. And Carlos was telling the story that one day they woke up, Presbyterian Church in Cuba, and the world had been turned upside down. There had been a revolution. And instead of the church being now part of the elite, all of a sudden the church was the enemy of the people. And Carlos leaned across the table. Carlos and I became good friends. We'd sit in cafes, drinking rum, listening to music, talking about desert theology. He leaned across the table and he said, imagine that. The church of Jesus Christ, the church of the poor, good news for the poor, is the enemy of the people of Cuba. Imagine that. Then he explained to me that moments after the revolution, 73% of the ministers and elders of the church went to Miami. But those who stayed realized that their major job, probably the only job they had to do, was to recreate their relationship with the people of Cuba. A church is a place of relationship. But I want to be clear about this, what kind of relationship I'm talking about. We all have relationships, and they're good, so that we come here. It's not only joyous, it's meaningful for us. But this is a different kind of relationship I'm talking about, so let me jump to London. There was a church in London. It was located on the border with one of those London estates, which you've probably seen in some movie or TV show. It's a place of working class people, high unemployment, high crime. In the middle of this estate, they had built, when they built the estate, a community center. But it was so poorly done that it had become a dark and dank place where young men sold drugs and urinated on the wall. And the church said to themselves, we want to do mission in the community, so what we're going to do is we're going to fix that community center up. So they got a grant, and they raised money, and they got an architect, and they got planning permission, and they got builders. They did everything except go to the estate and talk to the people on the estate. And when they did, people on the estate said, man, it's really great, you want to help us, but if you really want to help us, you can help us tear down the community center, plant grass, and build a playground for the kids. And then we can walk 100 yards to your church buildings that are empty through the week and have our community center there. The church went ahead and fixed the community center without making provisions for its upkeep. Their heart may have been in the right place, but it wasn't about relationship. It was about a program. It was about a project. The poor were a project. They weren't people. The church is a place of liberation and a place of relationship. And I don't care if you like the people outside the walls. It doesn't matter. It's about relationship. My first trip to Ghana in Accra. I wasn't preaching that Sunday, but I was the honored guest. And so, and it had an altar, higher up, not like our church, higher up. So I'm sitting on this chair, and I was just there to give greetings to the United Reformed Church. We had a long relationship with the church here. And I was sitting there, and, they did the sermon, we sang, we did the stuff. It wasn't much different. We did bread. But then it came time for the offering. And all of a sudden, the drums started playing. Several people on drums started playing. And some music started playing. And everybody started getting up and dancing. Now, there were about 800 people in the church, and this took time. There were two, stands with a basket, one here and one over here. And they all got up and they started dancing. They did this little dancing thing. And they go up and they drop their money in there and they would dance back. And it took forever because not only was there 800 of them, they had an offering. Then they had an offering for people born on Tuesday because Ghanaian names are associated with the day of the week that you're born. So I'm sitting there, I'm watching this, and my body's going, Dale, get up and dance. And my head's going, don't you dare! You'll make a fool of yourself. On the flight back to London, I asked myself, how does my church dance? Now, let's face it, we Westerners aren't going to get up and dance in church. But how do we celebrate? The church is a place of celebration. Now, imagine with me for a moment that Roberta and I, our next anniversary, invite all of you to the party. We're going to have the party in here. And you walk in and you see all the chairs lined up along the wall. And over here there's a band. And it's a really, really good band, because Glenda and Eric told me it was. And over here we got a table full of drinks. There's water and juices and colas, and there's wine and there's beer. It's brilliant. And over here there's a table of food. There's food for everybody, meat lovers and vegans and you name it. And over there, there's a dessert table that's going to make you just want to sit down and cry. It's so good. And Roberta and I come in and we say, please have a seat. And you sit down, and Roberta and I come over, and we get a glass of wine, and the band starts playing, and Roberta and I are dancing around the floor. Then we stop for a bit more to eat, and then we dance some more. And then when we're satiated and exhausted, we say to you, thank you for coming to the party. Good night. Of course, you didn't party. You watched a party. Church is a place of liberation. It's a place of relationship, and it's a place of celebration. Now, Stan, Eric, I'm sure I'm over time. So I have two more that I want to get to the big finish before losing you. I was going to tell you about Korea. Our partners there is a PROK, a Presbyterian Church in Korea, which is founded on the notion of social justice in the community, and most, if not all, of their leaders through the years have been arrested. I'm not talking about being in the county jail overnight, I'm talking about weeks, months, and maybe years. And on one visit, I was there, and the church was demonstrating and marching and protesting in solidarity with, I can't remember what it was, some farmers and Americans were involved. There's a long story. I don't have time to tell the story. And it's sad because it's the only story I have that actually indicates I might not be a total coward, because they had to whisk me away so I wouldn't be arrested. But my point about that, I'm going to add to this, is the church is a place of justice. We shouldn't shortchange justice, but I need to get to the big finish. Church is a place of liberation, of relationship, of celebration, and justice. On my first trip to Jamaica, it was my first trip on the job, actually. And I arrived, and because I was new, I was meeting all kinds of people. And they were telling me about what the church was. They said we were in decline, and we were depressed, and we were without hope. But now, we're growing, and we're enthusiastic, we're very hopeful. Everybody was telling me this. And so I started asking the obvious question. How did you go from there to there? How did you go from depression to enthusiasm, from decline to growth? And they all said the same thing. They said, one, strong leadership. First thing they all said, strong leadership. Don't get confused about strong leadership. Strong leadership is an interesting thing. There are many models of leadership, and they weren't talking about dictatorship. They were talking about a collaborative leadership. Second, celebrative worship. I kid you not. That's what they said. I'm not making it up. Third, fighting for justice in the community, just for the sake of fighting for justice. And third, education. Education in the church and educating outside the church. If you think of decline and depression without hope as death, and you think of growth and enthusiasm and hope as life, I asked myself on the flight back to London, if they can do it, if they can go from death to life, why can't we? What? They're just folk. I guess about 3 or 4 hours before I landed, image came to my head. And this is it. We're in the tomb. And we're really comfortable in the tomb. We know our place. We know how it operates. We form committees so that we can keep things organized in the tomb. And one day, Christ comes to us and said, hey, what are you guys doing in the tomb? I've offered each of you resurrection, and I've offered your whole community resurrection. So what are you doing in the tomb? Come on out. And so we thought, well, let's give it a try. We get up, we walk to the entrance of the tomb, we look out, and it's like there's a force field there. And we just stop dead at the entrance of the tomb. And we look out, and we just don't recognize the landscape. And Christ says, what's the problem? Why are you just standing there? And we say, well, you said we resurrected into life. What's this? Jesus says, this is it. This is life. And we said, no, we want to be resurrected into the life that we knew. We want to be resurrected into the image, the imagination, what we think life should be. We don't see. What is that? And so we turn around and go back into the tomb. The church is a place of life. So, the church is a place where we don't build walls. The church is a place of liberation, of relationship, of celebration, and of new life. Welcome home.